5 and 39. And it states, search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life, and they are they which testify of me. And you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. Let's look at something in James chapter 5. It said you know that the love of Elohim ain't in him. One of the things that, we get Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 1 too. One of the hardest things in dealing with the word that we have to be able to learn how to do is to be able to endure afflictions, because afflictions and sufferings can be very, very hard. It can be very, very difficult to the point that they can be burdensome to your spirit and you don't want to continue. So we look at 5 and 10 in James. Take my brethren the prophets who have spoken in the name of Yahuwah for an example of suffering, affliction, and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. You have heard the patience of Job, and you have seen the end of Yahuwah, that Yahuwah is very pitiful and of tender mercy. Because it can be times where, when we look at Job, let me show you something Job said in the 3rd chapter before we even read Deuteronomy. Let's look at the 3rd chapter of Job. The affliction got on him so heavy. This is how he went to speaking. Make sure I got it. I think I had read this to y'all the other day. We're going to read Job 3 and 1 again, though. It says, after this, opened Job his mouth and cursed his day. And Job spake and said, let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, there is a man-child conceived. Let that day be darkness, let not Elohim regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. Now, when we turn around and look at the affliction that came upon him, at this time, you know, he had done, all his children had done died. He lost everything he had. He had these boils on him. And in the midst of that affliction, he began to desire that he wasn't even born. That the day that he was born was cursed. Matter of fact, look at Jeremiah chapter 20. And you'll see Jeremiah make the same statement. In Jeremiah 20 and about verse 14. And it says, cursed be the day wherein I was born, and let not the day wherein my mother bare me be blessed. Cursed be the man who brought tidings to my father, saying, a man-child is born unto thee, making him very glad. And let that man be as the cities which Yahuwah overthrew and repented not, and let him hear the cry in the morning, and the shouting at noontide. Because he slew me not from the womb, or that my mother might have been my grave, and her womb to be always great with me. He said, wherefore came I forth out of the womb to see labor and sorrow, that my days may be consumed with shame. So Jeremiah asks, why did he come out of the womb to see labor and to see sorrow, and that his days might be consumed with shame? So when we look at something, when we come to this, and we can obviously tell that this is pointing to Mashiach. And when we see that this is pointing to Mashiach, why did he come forth out of the womb to see labor and to see sorrow, and for his face to be covered with shame? Just going to look at 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and look at a statement that Paul made. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and about verse 21. And I'm going to read down a little bit. Because for him to come out of his mother's womb to see to feel sorrow and shame, or to feel the labor and to feel sorrow, and for that shame to come upon him, it was that through his weakness that we might get this power. So we look in 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and about verse 22. Or 21, I'm sorry. He said, I speak as concerning reproaches, though we had been weak. Howbeit, whereinsoever any is bold, I speak foolishly. I am bold also. Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Yasharal? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. Are they ministers of Mashiach? I speak as a fool. I am more, in labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, and prisons more frequent, and deaths oft. Of the Yahudim 5 times received I 40 stripes save one. Thrice was I beaten with rods, once was I stoned, thrice I suffered shipwreck, and night and day I have been in the deep, and journeyings often, and perils of waters, and perils of robbers, and perils by my own countrymen, and perils by the heathen, and perils in the city, and perils in the wilderness, and perils in the sea, and perils among false brethren, and weariness and painfulness, and watchings often, and hunger and thirst, and fastings often, and cold and nakedness. So we looking at all of these things, and when you look at all of these things that he just mentioned, he's doing all these things. These are labors and sorrows, because I don't know how anybody could think you could be grade A happy suffering all of that. That's a lot to take on. That's a lot to endure. So let's look at some individuals who came forth out of the womb and seen this labor and this sorrow. And let's look at somebody who was suffered shipwreck. Let's look at the book of Jonah. And let's look in Jonah chapter 1. And we'll look at 1 and 1. We're going to come back to Jonah in a little bit in another chapter. But let's look and see if he suffered shipwreck. He said, now the word of Yahuwah came unto Jonah the son of Amittai, saying, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of Yahuwah, and went down to Joppa, and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it to go with them unto Tarshish from the presence of Yahuwah. But Yahuwah sent out a great wind into the sea, and there was a mighty tempest in the sea, though that the ship was like to be broken. Then the mariners were afraid, and cried every man unto his God, and cast forth the wares that were in the ship into the sea, to lighten it of them. But Jonah was gone down into the sides of the ship, and he lay and was fast asleep. Now hold this right here in Jonah, and come over to Hebrew 12 and 1, because he said they took all the stuff that was in the ship, and they threw it overboard to lighten it. And sometimes it's hard and it's heavy, as an affliction or sorrow may be. We have to put that stuff to the side, that maybe it might lighten it. And matter of fact, you get 2 Corinthians chapter 4 to go along with this Hebrews chapter 12. About 4 and 14 maybe. But Hebrews 12 and 1. We still got Deuteronomy chapter 8 to the side. He said, wherefore, seeing we're also compassed about with so great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does easily beset us, and let us run the race with patience that is set before us. Looking unto Yahushua, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the stake, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim. For consider him that endured such contradictions of sinners against himself, lest you be wearied and faint in your minds. Now we know that sometimes we could get 2 Corinthians chapter 4, about verse 14. He telling us to lay aside all the things that could hold us back, lest those things that are, and look unto the master, and look at somebody who did nothing wrong, who came out of the womb to suffer sorrow and shame, to labor, to sorrow and to suffer shame as a great contradiction against himself, because he never did anything to where he should have received that level of judgment. So when we look at somebody who has such a great contradiction against himself, then we could take that into consideration, lest we be weary and we faint in our own minds and be ready to give up. So when we look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and about verse 14, he said, knowing that with he which raised up the master Yahushua shall also raise up us also by Yahushua, and shall present us with you. For all things are for your sakes, that the abundant favor might through the thanksgiving of many redound to the esteem of Elohim. So that's the same thing we look at Mashiach. Mashiach said, I came to offer myself to make myself a ransom for many. See, I didn't do that for my sake. He did that for our sake. That favor might give to thanksgiving to Elohim for the salvation of our souls, that they might redeem to his esteem because of the mercy that he showed. He said, for which cause we faint not. So we know because this man has did this, we faint not. But though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, work for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of esteem. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. The things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. So when we sit back and we look at the light affliction that works in us but for a moment, he said it works a far more exceeding and eternal weight of esteem. Now, while we was where we was at before that. And Jonah, we'll come back to Jonah. Now this Deuteronomy chapter 8 is going to come into play that we're going to look at, because he say this light affliction was for a moment, but it was the work of more exceeding and eternal weight, something more heavier in us, that we might be able to have that esteem, because we're not looking at the things which we can see, but the things which we cannot see. So let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 8 and 1. Deuteronomy 8 and 1. Hold on one second, y'all. Deuteronomy. You know, stuff we are. Stuff sometimes in life, the affliction weigh you down, and you can have parts in you that be fighting against one another, because you know the flesh and the ruach war against one another. The flesh seeking to get you to do the things which you ought not to do. You know, the adversary comes about when you're in a weakened state that we done speak about before, to cause you to do those things which are not convenient. Cause you to want to just sit back and look like, you know, what's the point? When you sit back and we look at these infirmities for the purpose of these infirmities, that if we can endure these weaknesses and these weak situations, that the power of the Most High can rest upon us. So we look at Deuteronomy 8 and 1. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall you observe to do, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which Yahuwah sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which Yahuwah thy Elohim led thee these 40 years in the wilderness. Excuse me. To humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thy heart, whether thou would keep his commandments or no. Now, we're going to look at something in Job with that too. Well, I'll just reference it. When Job was going through what he was going through, his wife told him, you ought to curse Elohim and die. And he told her, you speak as the foolish women speak. Because even through all that, when we look at every manner of affliction, all it is to humble thee. That through suffering, you would learn obedience. And that you could be made perfect through it. You know what I'm saying? You can get you Luke 24 and 25 in a moment. But let me finish this Deuteronomy. And he says, and he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna that thou knew not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee to know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceed out the mouth of Yahuwah doth man live. So they didn't know that light affliction they were suffering in the wilderness for them 40 years was actually pointing to a greater weight and esteem for them to receive, which was to receive the eternal esteem of entering into the land. But because they were looking at the things which they could see versus the things which they could not see, because they could not see the land, they couldn't see that esteem, they couldn't see that greatness. All they could see was there's giants in the land, or this is in the land, or that is there, and they only seen what could stop them from getting it. Not looking at, let me rely on Yahuwah, and in due time, though this outward man is perishing, inwardly I be renewed, because he's giving me this hidden manna. He's feeding me with his word. They were sitting back looking at, we didn't have cucumbers, leeks, and melons, and they were looking at, you know, it was better for us in Egypt. It was better for us this, it was better for us that. So therefore, and the weakness that they were in, they didn't allow the power of Mashiach to rest upon them, because they were looking to come out of that weakness, because they didn't want to endure it. They didn't want to suffer it. Now, just escaped my mind. Well, I said I want to go look at. But let's look at Hebrews chapter 2 real fast, though. And then we'll come back to Jonah. You look at Hebrews chapter 2. And we look at about verse 8. Oh, that was Luke 24 and 25. We get it in a second. It go right along with it. Luke 24 and 25. Luke 24 and 25. Well, let me read this Hebrews 2 and 8 first. For thou hast put all things in subjection under his feet, for in that all that he put all into subjection. Under him. He left nothing that is not put under him. But now we see not yet all things put under him. But we see Yahushua was made a little lower than the Malachim for the suffering of death, crowned with esteem and honor, that he might by the favor of Elohim should taste death for every man. For it became him for whom are all things and by whom are all things, and bringing many sons unto esteem, to make the captain of our salvation perfect through sufferings. For both he that sanctified and they are sanctified all are one, for which cause he is not ashamed to call them brethren. So, and for order for us to become his brothers, to be sanctified by him, going to have to be sanctified through some manner of suffering. All the prophets that came before us had some manner of suffering. And we can even sit back and look at some of the prophets who felt like the burden that was on them was too much, to the point that they didn't want to continue. You know what I'm saying? To a certain extent. And we can sit back and I'm going to show you an example of one of them who was dealing with a type of depression. And when that depression came on him, you know, he was happy for a minute, he was sad, and he was angry, and then he was ready to die. You know what I'm saying? Because I was discussing this with somebody a couple of days ago, and it was explaining to them what it's like, because all it's really like when you're dealing with depression is something that came on you that was a little bit overwhelming for you. And then it usually starts with something that brings about some manner of sadness, and then through that sadness you have a wide range of emotions that begin to go through you. Hello? Hello? What's going on? So when you have all these wide range of emotions that are going through you, it could swing you all over the place. You know what I'm saying? I had somebody basically tell me like, you're emotionally unstable. Now, of course, they didn't know what I was actually dealing with, and it's not something that you would readily express with somebody, because your emotions can be all over the place. But this is a form of sitting back showing about of that weakness. We're going to look at Jonah. He was dealing with that same fashion. The Most High was actually showing him something and doing something for him to accentuate a point to him while he was going through this. Even we looked at when Jonah was sent to go to preach to Nineveh, he decided to go to somewhere else. And actually what that is that Proverbs 19 and 21. He say a man can have many intents in his heart, but Yahuwah's plan is going to prevail. Jonah's intent was, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do this. You know what I'm saying? But Yah had already said, no, you're going to come and you're going to do this, because this is what I've appointed you to do. You can run from it. You can slide from it. You can try to do something else. You can try to go somewhere else. It's not going to make any manner of difference, because my purpose is going to stand. So, nevertheless, when you look at it, it said that the captain of our salvation was made perfect through suffering. So, through becoming in a weakened state, the power of the Most High rests upon him. So then we sit back and look at it. When we are in a weakened state, if we basically esteem in these infirmities, it was something that Brother Tony had put it out there like this here. And, you know, I know over the course of the time that I've been doing this, I make reference to it. But then some people necessarily, because you don't do it all the time, they only look at the times where they sit back and they see you as being a very, very strong individual. And they don't look at it sometimes when you mention your frailties or your weaknesses, or times where you've been down or low. Because most people look at leadership and they want to see that strength. And that's all they want to see. They don't want to see those weaknesses. Because when you put those weaknesses out there and those vulnerabilities out there, then it causes people to sit back and look at you in a different fashion. Sometimes people just don't necessarily want to see that. This is what made Mashiach a little different from any leader of anything that has ever existed upon the earth. Because he was a man who had all manner of strength, but also showed the same manner of weakness to the people that he was leading. That therefore they were more willing to come to him, because he could understand their infirmities and relate to them to be an aid, a help, and a relief. When the people in front of that, doesn't mean that they doing stuff they don't have no business. But when the person who is standing in front of you can show you the same vulnerabilities that you have, it can make it easier for you to overcome yours. A lot of times you hear it because the person who's telling you that these are things that you see them dealing with in the past. This is why at times you see the Most High take his servants or take his prophets and all of these things and put them in the midst of sufferings and infirmities right before the people so they could see it. You know what I'm saying? And when they see these things, they can sit back and look at that. Just like you say, the servant's not above his master, and the disciple is not above his Lord, and everyone that is perfect shall be as his master. So you'll turn around and you'll look at it and you'll see that he is the same as I am. This is what Mashiach came to sit back and show us, that through his poverty we might be made rich. Through his weaknesses we might be made strong. That's why you even sit back and you look at the apostles, and Paul states that though we be weak, you be strong. Because through the weakness and the sufferings that I take on, then that can be able to the imparting of the word that you could be made strong through that weakness. This is what Mashiach came to do. But let's look at something in Luke 24 and 25. Make it 24 and 19. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna sit back and tell you though, it's not always an easy thing to endure when you're the one that gotta take them. And he said unto them, what things? And they said unto him concerning Yahushua of Nazareth, which was a prophet mighty in deed and word before Elohim and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned to death and have crucified him. But we trusted that it had been he which would have redeemed Yasharal. Besides all this, today is the third day since these things were done. And yea, certain women also of our company made us astonished, which were early at the sepulchre, where they found not his body, and they came saying that they also had seen a vision of Malachim, which said that he was alive. And certain of them which were with us went to the sepulchre and found it, even so as the women had said. But him they saw not. Then he said unto them, O fools, and slow of heart, to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not Mashiach to have suffered these things and to enter into his esteem? So again, we see in that thing what he say, even though this light affliction be for a moment, we renew inwardly day by day, and this it's for an exceeding and eternal weight of esteem. Then he sat back and I'm gonna tell you something too, man. Now he's sitting back looking at they ain't believed all the things that the prophet has spoken. But I can tell you from personal experience of knowing, and especially you dealing with the battling of the Ruach and the flesh, you can go through so many things and you'll sit back and look at that, you'll just outright like, Yah has forsaken me, he has left me. And then when you get into that certain situation, you can feel like your hope is fading away. So I'll show you an example of that in Psalm 77. See, even Job himself, and we'll get back to Job, even Job himself had thought these things himself. In Job 77:1. I mean Psalm 77:1, because it ain't no Job 77 for certain. Psalm 77:1. He says, I cried unto Elohim with my voice. We still hold in 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Even unto Elohim with my voice he gave ear unto me. And the day of my trouble I sought the master. My soul ran in the night and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. Now what we looking at here is when we read this here, all we seeing is what Mashiach did in the 27th chapter of Matthew, or the 26th chapter of Matthew, my apologies, when he sat back and he said he cried unto Elohim with his voice in the day of his trouble. Because you can sit back and look at it. When Mashiach said in Matthew 26 and about 41, I'm exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. I don't even think people sit back and realize that when somebody's going through a manner of depression, that's exactly how they feel. You know what I'm saying? Exceedingly sorrowful is an extra form of sorrow. It's a greater sorrow. See, I was trying to explain to somebody because they asked me, was I depressed for an extended period of time? When you dealing with depression, you're not depressed every single day. You know what I'm saying? See, there's a difference between being sad, being down, and being depressed. Everybody's been depressed. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't care who you was. But for most people, it's usually for a short period of time. Might be a day or so, a week or so. You know what I'm saying? You move past it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody been sad. Everybody been down. But when you're dealing with a real live depression, it's just like Mashiach said in 26th chapter, Matthew 41st verse, exceedingly sorrowful. You know what I'm saying? And then the difference is how long will that sorrow last? See, I was explaining to somebody, man, seriousness, I don't think they really caught it. I think it started in November. You know what I'm saying? It probably got worse. It got worse January to the end of February. You know what I'm saying? That was about the worst of it. The entire month of January and pretty much the first 3 weeks of February was the worst. It was bad in December. I'm gonna say it began in November, began in December. It was still like that there. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't as bad in December. An event happened in December, and that's what kick-started. You know what I'm saying? And it just got gradually worse for about 50 to 55 days. You know what I'm saying? So you get to the point where I don't even think anybody even sat back and realized it. Like, yeah, it's times you don't even want to get up. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to do nothing. Like, I don't want to come preach. I don't want to go lift weights. I got a business that I'm trying to start and run. Don't want to do that. And then a person to hear you say you don't want to do all these things, they sit back and look at you crazy. But then they don't sit back and realize, though, that every time he was supposed to preach, he was there. Every time that he was supposed to go lift weights, he was there. Everything that he had to do to get his business off the ground and get it started, he did it. That no matter, even with all that sorrow, even the fact that I don't want to do absolutely nothing at all, but just sit in a room by myself. You know what I'm saying? Still got to get up and go do it. Some people can allow that depression to sit back and take hold of them, and they literally don't go do it. Because what ends up having depression is you start not to care. You know what I'm saying? That's what people don't sit back and realize. You start not to care, and then hopelessness seeps in. And then when that hopelessness seeps in, that's how some people go ahead and they kill themselves. See, I seen somebody was talking about that earlier today. Some woman, some entertainer, I guess, tried to kill herself, and it wasn't successful. And the dude was going off about two of his family members who did it, and how selfish they were, and how angry he was with them, because he was like, that don't hurt that person. It hurts the people that's left behind. Which on his end, I understand where he's coming from. I don't think sometimes on the other end that did you even sit back and maybe even realize or understand the suffering that that person was going through. That maybe if you could have came and been there for them, that it might have not got to that point. 99.9% of the time, those people reached out to a lot of people, and people disregarded it. You know what I'm saying? Didn't look at it. Did the same thing like the apostles did with Mashiach when he said he was exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. They went and fell asleep. He said, you couldn't even watch with me for 1 hour to sit back and see how sorrowful and how broken I am at this point in time, and you couldn't even be there for me. Because when he said you couldn't even watch for me for 1 hour, that's what he was telling them. I brought you up here because I was in a state of so much sorrow and so much hardness, and I needed you to be there for me at this time. And what did you do? You went and went to sleep. You know what I'm saying? You went and went to sleep. You know what I'm saying? Even when you sit back and looking at the sorrow that he was about to go through, he still didn't go through it by himself. He didn't seek to go through it by himself. See, that's the difference when you're dealing with somebody who's depressed. They usually isolate themselves and shrink themselves away from people, so the way they don't want to be around anybody, which is actually the worst thing that you could ever do. Most people don't realize how heavy that is. So, and that person's anger of his family members that took themselves out, I don't think sometimes people sit back and realize. Now, I'm like this here, like, that's a strong level of pain and hopelessness that somebody got to feel when they sincerely move to take their own life. So a lot of people look at it as a selfish move, and to a certain extent it is. Because I told somebody I wanted to die, and they looked at me, and all they went off was, you just so selfish, you ain't thinking about nobody else. This, that, there, and the third. And like, you are thinking about other people. But then like when you make that statement, the other person on the other end, when they hear that, they think you being selfish, and it never clicks in their brain. What normal person who's feeling well would state that they would want to die? And why would they want it? What's going through their brain? What type of pain are they feel? Because a lot of times people will say you doing that for attention. And you know what the word part is? Why would you think that somebody would have to do or say things of that nature and express their pain for attention? That you would think that somebody would want attention and somebody to care for them that bad, that they would have to do something like that. Now we know it's attention whores out here, and it's people who do stuff like that, but that's how our brains have been conditioned to not have compassion on people and really listen to the thing that they saying and the pain that they expressing. Because like we read earlier, you reading Jeremiah like, man, curse the day that I was born. Why did I even come out my mother's womb to see labor and sorrow and shame? Why I even here? But then we already read, we see why Jeremiah came out to suffer labor and sorrow and shame. Because he had to point to Mashiach, because Mashiach had to take on these sufferings and shame to enter into esteem, that he might bring many sons unto esteem, to make the captain of your salvation perfect. So this is why he had to come forth to take these things on. Then we had to sit back and look at that we might have to come forth to take these things on. That's why he say he humbled himself even unto death, even the death of the state. And the Most High gave him a name which is above all names, that at the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, every knee should bow and every tongue should confess. And at the same token that he would turn around and say that he would call the synagogue of Satan to bow down and lick the dust off your feet, that you might know that he loved you because you suffered for his name's sake, that you bear the marks of the body of Yahushua for your salvation, which would be an exceedingly greater reward. So then we sit back and look at that light affliction, but be for a moment, even though that affliction doesn't seem to be light when you going through it. So we look at verse 2, right? In Psalm 77. He said, in the day of my trouble, I sought the master. My soul ran in the night and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. This is what he was dealing with that night of Passover, or Pesach, when he was getting ready to die. See, I know what this, but when you read this verse and it says, because it say to the chief musician, to Jeduthun, a psalm of Asaph. You know what I'm saying? Let me read verse 3. He said, I remembered Elohim and was troubled. I complained and my spirit was overwhelmed. Selah. You see what it said? He said, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. This man say, when he was finna get ready to go through this, and he said he was exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death, first thing he did was he prayed to his father. He remembered Elohim. You know what I'm saying? That's why he say in James chapter 5 about verse 13, he said, if a man be afflicted, let him pray. Mashiach showed you that. He was afflicted. He went and prayed. When we turn around and we look at a lot of righteous men in the word, when they began to become afflicted, the first thing they did is they prayed. They remembered their power. And they said they went and sought him. That's the first thing a man who trusts in the living Elohim, that's what he going to turn around and do. So then we look at the next thing. He said, I was troubled. I complained. My ruach was overwhelmed. He say, Selah. That means to consider. Like he say, my soul refused to be comforted. It's a lot of people that came to comfort me, and it's just like, so my soul refuses it. Just refuses it. It's not even trying to hear. Listen what the next thing he say in verse 4. He say, thou hold my eyes wakened. I'm so troubled that I cannot speak. I have considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. I commune with my own heart, and my ruach make diligent search. He say, will the master cast off forever? Will he be favorable no more? Is his mercy clean gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? Have Elohim forgotten to be gracious? Have in his anger shut up his tender mercy, Selah. And I said, this is my infirmity. But I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of Yahuwah. Surely I will remember thy wonders of old. I will meditate also of all thy work and talk of all thy doings. Thy way, O Elohim, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a Elohim as our Elohim? Thou art the Elohim that do wonders. Thou hast declared thy strength among the people. Thou hast with thine arm redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. Now let's turn around and look at something. He say, thy way is in the sanctuary. Now we know that Isaiah 8:13 say he's given us a sanctuary. Even in Ezekiel, he said, I've made a little sanctuary for you in the places where you've been scattered. And when Mashiach came and said that, to destroy this temple, and I'll build it again in 3 days. And they say this temple was 46 years in building, but he spake of the temple of his body. Of his body. See, when we look at when he told Peter, he said, upon this rock, I'm going to build my house. Matter of fact, Hebrews chapter 3. Just hold this Psalm 77. We hold in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, Hebrews chapter 3. Hebrews 3:1. I'm going to tell you something, man. It's a hard about yourself, man. Because it'll be times, man, when you come out, at least I speak for myself, you come out, you feeling better. Things sit like that, and then something comes and it discourages you. You know what I'm saying? Now, when you coming out of a depression, it see right now, so a couple things done happened to just today alone. Straight discouragement. You know what I'm saying? It just didn't push it all the way in, but then your mind go to thinking all kind of crazy type stuff. You know what I'm saying? And you have to remember what 2 Corinthians chapter 4 say, to cast down those imaginations and bring them into the captivity of Mashiach, to cast them down, because they can come up real easy. But listen what he tell you. He said, wherefore, Kadesh brethren, partakers of the heavenly calling, consider the apostle and high priest of our profession, Yahushua HaMashiach, who was faithful to him that appointed him, as also Moses was faithful in all his house. For this man was counted worthy of more esteem than Moses, insomuch as he who have builded the house have much more honor than the house. For every house is builded by some man, but he that built all things is Elohim. As Moses truly was faithful in all his house as a servant for a testimony of those things which will be spoken after. But Mashiach as a son over his own house, whose house are we, if we hold fast the confidence and the rejoicing of the hope firm unto the end. See, when you sit back and you look at all those things in Psalm 77 that was stated, had he shut up his tender mercies? Has he cast off forever? Has he forgot his promise? He say, but, O Elohim, and thy way is the sanctuary. Thy way is the sanctuary. We know Mashiach is the sanctuary and he's the way. So then when we look at that, that's where he comes in at, that we hold fast that confidence and we rejoice in that hope firm to the end, that even through all those afflictions and all that suffering and all that pain, we will continue to remember that Yahuwah is merciful, and that if we continue to trust in him, that we'll be lifted up in due time. These are things that we have to remember. That's how we got to sit back and turn around and look at it. Because that stuff can get hard. Come back to Psalm 77. And then we'll go back to Jonah. Hold on 1 second, y'all. So, we look at verse 7 again. He said in verse 6, he said how he stated how he called the remembrance, his song in the night. You know, Mashiach sung a hymn with his apostles in the night. You think he didn't call to remembrance those words that he sung unto Elohim? Matter of fact, hold it, come to Hebrew chapter 2 by verse 14. Hebrew 2 and 14. Make it 12. Hebrew 2 and 12. So it says, saying, I will declare thy name unto my brethren in the midst of the house. Will I sing praise unto thee? And again, hello? Hello? Verse 12. Saying, I will declare thy name unto my brethren in the midst of the house. Will I sing praise unto thee? And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, behold, I and the children which Elohim have given me. Now come back to Psalm 77. So again, this is what Mashiach sat back and realized, man, when you look in Psalm 77, what we're looking at, and that's what he did. He remembered his song in the night, and he communed with his own heart. And his Ruach made a diligent search. But no matter how much pain and suffering and affliction and sorrow that you might intake, you have to remember that song that you sung in the night. And you have to sit back and let your spirit do a diligent search to remember that Yahuwah is faithful. That's why he say this light affliction is just but for a moment, even though at the time it seems not to be. That's why he say we need to take the stuff off the boat and lighten it. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes we have to cast the sorrows and afflictions away to lighten it so we can run the race. And it's a lot easier said than done. That's why the book say 2 is better than 1. This is why I was going back referencing that of when we look at, matter of fact, let me put it this way. When we look at Elijah, and he was sorrowful, and he would ask him to die. He sent a Malachim to strengthen him and to guide him on his way. He didn't leave him alone. Uh, Even when we look at Mashiach, he sent a Malachim to strengthen him. Even when Mashiach went up by himself, he still took a couple of his apostles with him. When, like I said, man, when you actually break down just in English what exceedingly sorrowful unto death means, that is a form of depression. You know what I'm saying? I'm depressed to the point that I want to die. Same way Elijah was depressed to the point that he wanted to die. The same way we're going to look at Jonah and see he was depressed to the point that he wanted to die. You know what I'm saying? And in that instance, Yah never left these men alone. He always gave them something to give them some comfort or some strength that they were not alone. So what I'm telling you in a natural sense, when you look at somebody who's dealing with that themselves and they isolate, you know what I'm saying? That's not good. A lot of times before the person actually isolates, they reach out to other people to saying, I need your help, I need your strength, I need your comfort. And most of the times we don't recognize it. You know what I'm saying? And then they just shrink further and further away into that isolation. And then once they shrink further and further away into that isolation, that's how suicide come about. Now, I speak for myself. You know what I'm saying? Because I got the word, no matter how depressed I could be. When I say I got the word, not because I can preach it, because I believe in it and trust in it and follow it. That, you know what I'm saying, that wouldn't occur. That I would ask him to take me out before I would do it to myself and just wait for him to do it. I wouldn't do it myself. You know what I'm saying? But when you have somebody who don't have that and that hopelessness set in, they will take themselves out. And the reason why I mentioned it, because I talked about this on the Shabbat, man, and most high willing that if my business gets to the point that I would like it to be, that's one of the things that we're going to actually do in the community, which is to bring as much awareness to depression amongst black people, because it is not spoken about, it's not talked about. We look down upon it, we ridicule people for it, we mock them for it, we think something's wrong with them. We kind of like say, it's one thing you going through something, you telling them, all right, man, suck it up, man, you're going to be all right. But there's a difference between being down and being depressed. It's a totally different thing. And the reason why I say that, because I done had 3 black people in the last 4-5 days tell me that they suffered from this at a point in their lifetime. Now, I know somebody personally who suffers from this, and they on antidepressants for it. And if you saw them, you would not think that they suffer from this. Because all it is I mentioned earlier, you don't walk around and you're not depressed and sad 24/7, 365. That's not how it goes. It just goes that if certain situations in your life come about, when that sadness sets in, it can overwhelm you. Because you'll have so many different emotions going through you at one time, it overwhelms you. You know what I'm saying? And then what ends up happening is you begin to start to have a negative self-view of yourself. Most people who suffer from depression are either people who were never loved, never, what's the word I'm looking for? Stop. Never praised, never gave that endearment or encouragement that they had. Or some people who suffer from depression are some of the people who have the highest level of confidence that you would ever come across and have high self-esteem and all. But a lot of people who have that same level of confidence and self-esteem are sometimes 1,000 times, matter of fact, 1,000,000 times harder on themselves than anybody else can be. And because they so hard on themselves and they begin to beat themselves up about certain stuff, that's how they fall off into that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people are not that hard on themselves when they make a mistake or they make an error. Because most people are not perfectionists. Most people are not want everything to happen in a certain pattern. And when they make a mistake, they become devastated behind it, and they begin to question their own self-worth and value when other people sit back and look at them and think, man, you're this, that, there, and the third. But they won't be looking at themselves like that when they make a mistake. You know what I'm saying? It's just how some people's brains is wired. Some people can make a mistake, look at it, go on from it, it don't bother them. And some people, it haunts them. And they go over it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Do you know what I'm saying? To the point that the next thing you know, that it's totally consumed them. Even when we look in this Psalm 77, you sat back and say that this man said he complained about his sorrows and his trouble. It overwhelmed him. Most people have never been in a situation where their emotions overwhelmed them for an extended period of time. It could be for a week. It could be for a couple of days. You know what I'm saying? But when you go to talking about months, that's when you're dealing with a whole nother type of thing. That's why in my instance, I could lean on y'all. Like I told you, I can express what I'm feeling at the time. I could even express what I'm thinking at the time. But I will not react and move based on how I'm feeling. Now I could say things based on how I'm feeling that more than likely should not have been spoken. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the key things to sit back and look at is I might not make a decision or a reaction or make a move based off of it. But sometimes when you feel in a particular way, you might say things out of your mouth that you won't normally wouldn't say or you shouldn't say when those emotions are overwhelming you. 'Cause I'm telling you, right, you can go from happy, sad, mad, and all of this here. You get real temperamental. Your mood swings, your mood changes, and then you become unpredictable. Then when you get like this, people don't necessarily want to be around you. If they don't actually understand what you're dealing with and going through to be able to handle that, then you know what I'm saying? It just is what it is. And it's understandable if somebody doesn't know what you're dealing with and they want it, man, this nigga is crazy. You know what I'm saying? What's wrong with them? But it's just coming into we have to learn how to harness all of these things because everybody has an infirmity. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes they don't necessarily show themselves. Like I've been in the word 7 years. Next month, well, in 2 months, it'll be 7 years that I've been doing this. I've been afflicted and suffering pretty much the whole 7. You know what I'm saying? The whole 7. And no manner of sadness has came upon me through the whole 7, like in these last 1, 2, 5 months. Nothing close. It's been time my soul been weird, but nothing like this here. You know what I'm saying? Nothing. Like absolutely nothing. You know what I'm saying? To the point where I have to be in my own mind, the way I feel like sometimes I might pray a little bit too much. And then sometimes I think I might not pray enough. You know what I'm saying? And I'm telling y'all this for your own self because I don't know. 'Cause I just had a brother text me earlier telling me, he dealing with a lot. Since I said that, come over to the First Peter chapter 5. And sometimes, especially when you dealing with that level of sadness, First Peter chapter 5 about verse 6. That level of sadness that you don't necessarily want to minimize, or it's not that you don't care about what other people are going through, but when you get that depressed and that low, sometimes you can forget that you need to look at what other people are going through. You know what I'm saying? Because now you look at somebody in my position, I'm going through all this, and I still got to be cognizant of aware of what other people are going through. I only made that one error with one individual. You know what I'm saying? Only because that was the first time in my entire life that I felt comfortable enough and to be able to tell somebody what I was actually feeling and what I was actually thinking at the time. I've never trusted any human being on this planet enough to do that. Well, I'm going to say I did trust one, but they've been dead for 16 years. You know what I'm saying? That truth be told, if they were still alive, that's who I would have went to first. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew that this person understood my thought process and how I am, that they wouldn't have looked at me crazy for whatever I was going through. Because when you going through something real, real hard, and a lot of times you express that stuff, people look at you crazy, and they may not look at you the same. Because you really worry, if I really express these deep feelings and sufferings and thoughts that's in my brain, will this person still love me after that? How will they look at me after that? You know what I'm saying? Because the type of person that I am, I have deep, 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 deep feelings, thoughts, and emotions. I just don't express them. I just walk around and keep them to myself. I might sparse them out here and there. It's not a human being on this planet that can come and tell you, like, other than Yah and one other person. And that was just recently. And I can tell you that I done poured my whole heart out to him and tell him everything that's going through my brain, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether it was crazy, or whatever the case may be, like, boom. And it might have overwhelmed them. Because I know it was overwhelming me, but I needed to express this to somebody. This is the only person I trust to do this. Because this is beginning to be too much for me to bear. I can't carry this on my own. Sometimes I think y'all take us through stuff like that for you to realize that you could go through something and you can't carry this stuff on your own. That just takes me back to the thought process of when Mashiach was going through that there on that stake, and he sent Simon Cyrene to bear that cross with him, because you can't carry this on your own. That's to sit back and show us that we can't carry this on our own. That's why he's saying that all that suffering he went through, he remembered Elohim, and he made his complaint to him. He took that to him. That's when we look at whatever affliction, whatever you dealing with, I remember I need to take that to him. Let me take that to him. But even at the same time, when you taking it to him, you still got to remember that that's what your brethren and sistering are for. But like I say, sometimes we look at this stuff and you be like, I got my own problems. I can't take yours on. But then I sit back and look at, even if I got my own problem, I still got to listen to and help people through theirs, even if I'm suffering myself. So we look at 1 Peter 5 and 6. He said, humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of Elohim, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your care upon him, for he care for you. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walk about seeking whom he may devour, whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. I'm sitting back and tell you, man, I think, like, you got some people, they go through something. See, they can go commit a sin. They feel like they can go sin. They can go do this. They can go do that. They can go do this. See, I can't do that. See, like I told you, like, I've been doing this 7 years. The word is inside my heart. I know what to say. I know what I can and can't do. I know if my flesh get wild up, whatever, I'm sitting back thinking, you can't go do that. I can do it, but I know I'm going to hell off the rip. Ain't no I can go do it and maybe he'll forgive me later. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe he'll have mercy on me. I know that I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I can sit back and look at, oh, I'm angry. Oh, here's a woman right here. She offering sex. I go sleep with her. I know I'm going to hell, though. I know once that's over with, it's going to hell. It's over with for me. You know what I'm saying? I know this. Ain't no, well, y'all forgive me for what I done did. I already know, because, boy, you already knew that was wrong for you and did that. You going to hell. You know what I'm saying? I sit back and look at, man, think about a Pac song I used to listen to, man, where he was like, you know, I smoke a blunt to take the pain out. And if I wasn't high, I'd probably try to blow my brains out. You know what I'm saying? Or getting high was a way of being free. So when I sit back and look at something, whenever a nigga was suffering, and don't get it twisted, because I knew smoking marijuana was not going to make my problems go away. You know what I'm saying? Nor was I smoking to make my problems go away. You was smoking to just numb yourself to it. It's kind of like how somebody reads a book or goes to the movies to escape their problems. You know what I'm saying? But you ain't necessarily escaping. It's just you just hitting the pause button for a moment. You know what I'm saying? And I could be sit back and look at it like, boy, I'm going through it. I know back in the day when I was going through it, I just go get a bag and burn one. I go get a bag and burn one now, but I know I'm going to hell as soon as I do it. I already know this. You know what I'm saying? Because I can't go do that because you've been doing this entirely too long. You got too much word in your heart. You know what my words say. You know this here. You know full well for you went and did this. You is dead wrong. You know what I'm saying? See, somebody else can have their mind, well, and it ain't because, and I'm going to tell you something too, man, ain't got nothing to do because I preach or none of that. That has nothing to do with it because he didn't say he that sinned willfully because he preaches. There's no delineation. There's no difference. The same rules that apply for a person who don't preach apply for a person who do preach. There's no difference. He's not going to sit back and look at, I'm going to hold a preacher higher than somebody who don't. It's the fact that once this man's word is inside of you and you inside of him, yeah, you can have a crazy thought to go do something, but you know, I already know because it is like, you can't go do that. I don't have that type of leeway. You know what I'm saying? I don't have that type of wiggle room. I can't sit back and be like, okay, well, y'all might forgive me if I go sleep with this dude's wife, or if I go lay with this woman right here, or if I go get drunk, I go smoke this reefer. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something, man, real talk, man. I told a couple brothers about this. I told one brother in Detroit about this. I ain't going to go through the whole situation and all that stuff, man. But Brother Dave, I was thinking real crazy. You know what I'm saying? And while I was walking, while I was thinking real crazy, I don't know who it was. I can't sit back and tell you if it was this man Ruah or was it a Malakim, because he know he's saying Psalm 91, he's give his Malakim charge over you that you don't dust your feet up above the stone. But boy, I heard in my heart, y'all stop him. He got evil in his heart. You know what I'm saying? This is how crazy my mind was thinking, because it was running across stuff that I was so angry. You know what I'm talking about? A type of anger that I probably haven't felt in my life but a few times. You know what I'm talking about? To where just certain situations would have went down, it's going down. And it wouldn't have mattered who it was. They would have got physically assaulted. You know what I'm saying? That would have tried to rip them in half. Just on general principle. If a nigga would have looked at me wrong, spoke wrong, stepped on my toe, you know what I'm saying? I was ready to tear another human being in half. I don't even think like that. I've probably only been in 2 or 3 fights in my entire life. I'm not a violent individual. But when I heard that, and that's, man, y'all is my witness before whom I'm standing, I'm walking, I just hear, y'all stop him. He got evil in his heart. That scared me. You know what I'm saying? Because that let me know, boy, you thinking real crazy. You know what I'm saying? You thinking real crazy. To the point that you hear something in your own spirit, something else is crying out to tell the Most High to stop you because you thinking crazy. And that's what sometimes afflictions and sorrows, all that type of stuff go through your head. You got to realize you got to keep that stuff under control. Because that's why he sit back, he said, that's why I speak unto you according to the infirmities of your flesh, the weaknesses of your flesh, because the flesh, that's why the master sat back and told you, the Ruach is willing, but the flesh is weak. The flesh is weak. And you got to use the word to rein it in. That's what I'm sitting there telling you. Yeah, I could have went, and a nigga could have said something I ain't like, and just because I was in that type of rage, and I could have physically assaulted this person and beat this person half to death, and I would go into hell. And I would go into hell, because you already knew before you stepped out that door, you can't do nothing like that. That man say you can't be no brawler and enter into this man's kingdom. You can't do that. You can't do that. So, you know, I thank the Most High for that one now. Because that sat back and that made me pause, sit back and think, boy, you tripping. You tripping. You are tripping. I know some of y'all probably have same type of thoughts going through your head. Ain't got to be in that same type of situation. About stuff you got going on, and you don't sit back and realize you trip. I remember the first time a thought like that. There was another time a thought came like that. Them same dudes y'all might have seen us in that video talking to in Hemet Plaza. Them GMS dudes. We talked to them dudes probably about 2011. It's no exaggeration, no joke. I'm talking to the same head dude. Dude calling me all out my name. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about foul language. All out my name. I say, bro, you ain't got to talk to me like that. We both men. I talk to you any blanking way I want to. And I'm thinking in my head, if this nigga flinch wrong, I'm going to break his whole face. You know what I'm saying? And thing click in my mind, you can't do that. You can't do that. Because all I'm thinking, my flesh is thinking, this man is disrespecting me as a man. All these F-bombs, these female dogs, this, that, and the third, all that type of stuff. Like, bro, you supposed to be on the ground twitching. Because you don't talk to no another grown man like that. You know what I'm saying? Then you turn around and look at it, though. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? You can't do that. You can't do that. See, when you know that you can't do something, it don't matter how you feeling, what you dealing with, you not gonna do it. Because you know, I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Then you sit back and look at when a temptation come in your face to do something you know you ain't supposed to be doing. And you sit back and look at it. Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Because y'all say he don't tempt man with evil. He said, man, a man is enticed, he's drawn away with his own lust. And when the lust is conceived, it bring forth sin. And when sin is conceived, it bring forth death. So you know full well if something like that rolls up, y'all didn't bring it. Because I'm going to sit back and tell you, in the midst of all that depression and sorrow and anger, there's been times where I've been tempted. Boy, you can go lay with this woman. Well, I already know full well whoever this woman is, it ain't a y'all. So she can go about her business. I don't care how nice she might be, how attractive she might be. I can't do it. I'm going to go to hell. I know y'all ain't finna set me up to do something to, like, how you gonna get a blessing out of a sin? You don't get blessings out of sin. That's retarded. You gonna do something, sin, and to get a blessing out of sin? That's dumb. Only Satan does that. You learn that in the church. The church tell you you get blessings out of sin. Y'all don't give you no blessings out of sin. That's gonna be a snare and a trap. You're going to think the sin going to be a blessing, and it's really your destruction. That's how we think. I mean, that's how y'all operate. We thinking we get a blessing out of it. I told y'all a long time ago. Well, I learned that when I was selling dope. When I was trying to do stuff legal. And he didn't let it happen. Because how you going to get good out of evil? Man, look at Romans chapter 3. See, I read that 1 Peter chapter 1. 1 Peter chapter 5 for the simple fact that even when we going through these same sufferings that's going through myself. I know my brethren going through it too. Just had a brother tell me he was just going through something. Broke my heart to hear what he was talking about. You know what I'm saying? Sit back and hear how them people telling me. I had that brother tell me, like, he say, bro, I was going through a depression myself. He say, your faith helped me get through it. Never spoke to this man before a day in my life. Never seen this man. So this man is going by just what you put out on social media allowed me to come out of depression. I'm sitting back looking at this here like, boy, you got to stay strong, because somebody, that's a benefit to somebody, no matter how sad or sorrowful you might be feeling. That's a heavy thing for somebody to tell you that. Especially when you're not looking at yourself in the highest light that you could be. But let's look at this Romans chapter 3 though. Let's look at this Romans chapter 3, man, about verse 4. Make it 3 because I like the verse. Listen to what he tell you though. He say, for what if some did not believe? Shall that unbelief make the faith of Elohim without effect? Elohim forbid. Yea, let Elohim be true, but every man a liar. As it is written, that thou might be justified in thy sayings, and thou might overcome when thou art judged. Now, how are we going to be justified in our sayings if we say one thing about the word and then do something totally contrary to it? I say, man, I wouldn't care how sorrowful I was, how angry I might have been, or whatever the case may be. I didn't know a certain thing that I can't do. I'm not going to be justified in my saying. I'm not going to overcome when I'm judged if I go do this. I'm not going to be able to overcome that. You know what I'm saying? See, sometimes we look at, well, how do you know if y'all cut you off? You know what I'm saying? And you look at some of that, you'll know if your mind go backwards, or you begin to believe that doing unrighteousness is right. And then he'll cause you to believe that. I know for myself personally, there are things that I know that I cannot do because I'll be done. Like, it's already settled in my ruach. It's already within me, in my spirit. I already know this. You go do that, you going to hell. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't no repentance for you. You go do this right here, or you go do that right there, or you go do that right there. You don't get no repentance. You already know better. You know. I'm not sparing you on that. So that's always in the back of my mind. No matter what you feeling, no matter how bad, you can't go do that, boy. You know what I'm saying? You can't go do that. That's why I sit back here. Some of y'all need to start looking back in your mind and sit back and look at, boy, no matter what you feel, no matter what you going with, everything, boy, you can't go do that. You can't never get comfortable enough to say I can sin and then just say I'm sorry and then go sin again, then go sin again. Man, you're going to hell off that. That's a bad mind to have. Then you sit back and look at, if somebody comfortable enough to tell you to sin or agree with your sin, or don't nobody tell you that that's a dumb pathway. You know, the biggest thing mess a lot of people up, man, is niggas do stupid stuff, make bad decisions, and a nigga will not tell you it's a bad decision only because they want something from you or they doing something stupid they sell. Now you sit back and look at that, why you say judge not lest you be judged, because you can sit back and talk about what another nigga did, then turn around and go do the same thing that they did, and you in the same condemnation. Same condemnation. I done sat back and seen that. Sat back and seen that. So somebody was amazed at what somebody else did, went and did the exact same thing. That's why he say if you see a man caught up in the fault, he say restore him in meekness, lest you also be tempted. Y'all don't even sit back and y'all don't even consider that. While you sitting back looking at somebody else caught up in the fault, but if you don't come humbly and try to tell him what it is, and you say, I can't believe you did that. Why did you do that? Boom, boom, boom. You're going to be caught in the same temptation. You're going to do the same thing, find yourself in the same condemnation. And that's why we don't never even sit back and look at each other. We don't never have that type of compassion or love on each other. Boom. Because sometimes you're going to have to be rebuked and you're going to have to be held accountable. Then at the same time, after you did that, there's somebody still sit back and tell you like, man, you got to sit back and you got to assess and judge. You got to think. See, one thing I've done my entire life, I put something out there to cause you to think. Whatever decision you make, that's the decision that you choose to make. Because I can't make the decision for you. All I can do is put something out there to cause you to think. Because that's the number one biggest thing that people don't want to do. They don't want to think about stuff before they do it. They don't really look all the way out at the long-term ramifications of what they get themselves involved in, because they're always just looking at a temporary pleasure, a temporary fix. That's what happens because we live in an instant gratification society, a microwave society. We want what we want it right now. We don't necessarily want things that are sustained, Because things that come easy and look easy, that's what we want because it make me feel good right then, but then it falls apart because it's not sustained. That's the same thing you look at easy money. As easy as it comes, it's as easy as it goes. Because anything that you didn't have to struggle for or work hard for, it's not going to last. It's just going to be fleeting. It's just before the moment. That's why he say the pleasures of sin are deceitful. He said you'd rather suffer the pleasures of sin for a season rather than suffer affliction with the children of Elohim. Because the pleasures of sin ain't but for a short time. It doesn't endure. Romans 3 and about 5. He said, but if our unrighteousness commend the righteousness of Elohim, what shall we say? Is Elohim unrighteous who take vengeance? I speak as a man. Elohim forbid. For then how shall Elohim judge the world? He say, for if the truth of Elohim have more abounded through my lie unto his esteem, why yet am I also judged as a sinner? And not rather as we be slanderously reported. And as some affirm that we say, let us do evil that good may come, whose damnation is just. How you gonna do something evil and think good gonna come out of it? Now it's one thing if you didn't know no better. But when you know what you're doing is evil, how on Yah's green or rats do you think good is gonna come from evil? Y'all done heard me report this verse to you numerous times. He say, because the execution against an evil work is not executed speedily, it's in the hearts of the sons of men to do evil. Nigga commit sin and don't think the man gonna come see you. When that man say, if evil be done in the city, have not I, y'all done it? Nigga sit back, you ain't even looking at the man gonna come see you by it. Because you turn around and say, let me do evil and good gonna come from it. That man say, your damnation is justified. This is how the world got us thinking that we can do evil and good can come from it. That's one of the biggest lessons he showed me early when I stepped into this word. Boy, I couldn't let you build the things that you wanted to build in the community with drug money. Because then you'll sit back and look at, you could do evil to produce good. Y'all don't operate like that. You got to do good to produce good. You got to have righteousness to get righteousness. You can't have unrighteousness and get righteousness from that. You're not going to have that happen. The only way that happened is because Mashiach became unrighteousness to take that away from you. You can't do evil to get good. You got to be willing to suffer affliction and endure. When you ain't even willing to suffer affliction and endure, that means full well ain't no good gonna come from that. You can deceive yourself to believe good gonna come from that, but ain't no good gonna come from that. Not if you believe his word. If you believe his word, then you know ain't nothing good gonna come from that. Now, if you don't believe the word, then of course, you're going to believe good going to come from that. That's just something to consider. But let me come back over here to Jonah chapter 1, man, 'cause I got to wrap this up. I ain't get everything. I just carried it into the next day. If y'all allow me to be alive. So we look at Jonah 1, right? We were looking at what Paul said he suffered shipwreck. Excuse me. In verse 5. Then the mariners were afraid and cried every man unto his God and cast forth the waters that way, shipping to the sea, to lighten it of them. But Jonah was gone down in the sides of the ship, and he lay and was fast asleep. So the shipmaster came to him and said unto him, what mean thou, O sleeper? Arise and call upon thy Elohim. If so be that Elohim will think upon us, that we perish not. And they said every one to his fellow, come, let us cast lots, that we may know for this cause this evil is upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell upon Jonah. Now we know this is where they suffer in shipwreck. You know what I'm saying? He ends up making the sea calm and Jonah gets swallowed up in the belly. And then Jonah begins to, you know what I'm saying, cry out and make his supplications to Yah, and Yah vomited him out. And we know this is a representation of the resurrection. But let's look at the 4th chapter of this same book of Jonah. And when we look at Jonah 4 and 1, right? It said, but it displayed, well, let's back it up to 3 and 8 so y'all can see what's going on. Jonah 3 and 8. It says, but let man and beast be covered with sackcloth. I'm sorry. And cry mightily unto Elohim, and let them turn everyone from his evil way and from the violence that is in their hands. And who can tell if Elohim will turn and repent and turn away from his fierce anger, and we perish not? And Elohim saw their works, that they turned from their evil way. And Elohim repented of the evil that he said he would do unto them, and did it not. Now we looking at him about to destroy Nineveh, but the people fasted and repented. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry. So when these people repented, Jonah was angry, and Jonah the one went and preached to the people. And he prayed unto Yahuwah and said, I pray thee, O Yahuwah, was not this my saying? Was I yet in my country? Therefore I fled unto Tarshish, for I knew that thou art a gracious Elohim, merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repent thee of the evil. Therefore now, O Yahuwah, take, I beseech thee, my life from me, for it is better for me to die than to live. Then said Yahuwah, do thou well to be angry? Jonah went out of the city and sat on the east side of the city, and there made him a booth, and sat under it in the shadow, till he might see what would become of the city. Yahuwah Elohim prepared a gourd and made it come up over Jonah, that it might be a shadow over his head, to deliver him from his grief. So Jonah was exceedingly glad. Hold on one second, y'all. I want y'all to look at something. I'm going to read y'all something. And what I'm about to read y'all is what a gourd is. It is a plant. It was offered for shade. It's also known as a castor oil plant. It's native in that area of the world, but now it's naturalized in America. It can be of a certain size. It can be attaining a greater height of 3 or 4 feet. They have serrated lobes, which can come forth as excellent shelter. But I also say the seeds contain the oil so well known under the name castor oil, which has for ages been in repute as a medicine. It is now thought by many that the plant meant is a vine of the cucumber family, a gemline gourd, which is made for shade in the East. And when we look at that, that's very, very interesting, because we see that this gourd is known as a vine and it produces some manner of oil. And the reason why we turn around and we look at this as we read this is he prepared a gourd and made it come up over Jonah that it might be a shadow over his head to deliver him from his grief. Now let's look at something in Matthew chapter 8 about verse 17. So when we sit back and look at this gourd or this vine tree, that has this oil in him to take him over his grief, then we begin to see that he's getting a little shadow of Mashiach. He's just getting a little shadow of a little sun. We look at 8 and 17. But I'm going to back it up all the way about verse 10. Because I'm sit back and run it down. Because this son, my little sister just sent me. Not my blood sister, but another one. You know what I'm saying? It says, when Yahushua heard it, he marveled and said to them that follow, truly I say unto you, have not found so great faith, no, not in Yasharal. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and west and shall sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of Shamahim. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Yahushua said unto the centurion, go thy way, and as thou believe, so it be done unto thee. Now you sit back and look at it, right? The same way the people in Nineveh believed that Yah would have mercy on them, then repent, so it was done. But do you see the key thing he told this centurion? Now, this centurion came down because he said he had a servant that needed to be healed. And when Yahushua said he would come to heal him, the servant said, man, don't even come to my house. He said, speak the word only, my servant shall be healed. This man says, as you believe, so shall it be done unto thee. You know why a lot of stuff don't be done unto people? Because you actually don't believe what you asking the man for. You don't even actually believe he could do it. You know, you hear him say, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. When you sit back and look at it, it's just not necessarily mountains as in literal, but mountains of things that obstacles are in your way. That's why a lot of people say, help me with my unbelief. I had said Abraham did not stagger against unbelief, because when you suffering these afflictions and you dealing with these things, unbelief can creep in real quickly. And when we talk about unbelief, I ain't talking about the unbelief that comes from you for going to commit a sin, but the unbelief that Yah is capable and possible of doing all things. Because as the book say, there's nothing impossible unto Yah. It's a light thing. But when you going through these afflictions, you don't necessarily remember those things until you sit back and pause, like it said in Psalm 77. And he said, I remember Elohim. And he said, I remember that this is my infirmity. This is my weakness. He said, I will remember the right hand of the Most High Elohim, that he is merciful and gracious and of tender mercies and quick to save and deliver. That's what we sit back and look at. Even what I'm sitting back dealing with, all that type of stuff, I ain't never blamed y'all. Looked at how Job let it. This is my weakness. I know that this weakness will end up to be for my esteem if I continue to go through it. But this is my weakness. This ain't got nothing to do with him. Verse 14, and when Yahusha was coming to Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and sick of a fever, and he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she arose and ministered unto them. And when the even was come, they brought unto him many that were possessed with devils. And he was cast out, and he cast out the Ruachs with his word, and he healed all that was sick, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Yeshayahu the prophet, saying himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses. That's what he came to do. He came to take away these weaknesses from us. This is why Paul turned around and say, though we be weak, you be made strong. Because he took those diseases and those weaknesses that you might be made strong, that you might get that same esteem. That's why he suffered them first. So when we look at it, he say he put a gourd over there to take away his grief. This is what Mashiach came to do, is to take away our grief by bearing grief for us. See, let's look at Yeshayahu 53, which he's quoting anyway. (53 and 4), 53 and 3. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid it as were our faces from him. And he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we deem esteem him stricken, smitten of Elohim and afflicted. Then would you turn around and look at that gourd came to did. It came and bear the grief for Jonah. It came to carry it for him and to be a shadow that you might rest under him. See, let's go look at something, right? Let me look at something that come to my head, man. Come over here to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Verse 16, rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, and in everything give thanks, for this is the will of Elohim and Yahushua HaMashiach concerning you. Quench not the Ruach, despise not prophesying, prove all things, hold fast that which is good, abstain from all appearance of evil. And the very Elohim of Shalom shall sanctify you wholly. I pray, Elohim, your whole Ruach, Nephash, and body be preserved blameless until the coming of our Master Yahushua HaMashiach. Faithful is he that called you, who also will do it. But the thing that he told you is pray without ceasing. Rejoice evermore. Even in the sense of that, why you think he sat back and he did this here to take away this grief from you? This is what Mashiach came to do, because when grief is removed, then you could be happy. This was what thing was going on with Jonah. When he put this gourd or this shadow or this vine, that's why Mashiach said, I am the true vine, abide in me and I in you, and you'll bring forth much fruit. Now he got this oil that comes from this vine or this gourd. We know that is the Ruach. Of course, while we sit back and look at that, look at Matthew chapter 5. About verse 4. Five and 4. Listen what he tell you. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Do you realize that he turned around and he's showing you that he gave him that gourd to comfort him from his grief? And that gourd is representative of a vine that produces castor oil. And that comforter, John 14 and 26. 14 to 25. He said, these things have I spoken unto you, being yet present with you. But the Comforter, which is the Ruach HaKodesh, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I said unto you. Shalom I leave you with, and my shalom I give unto you. Not as the world give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. You have heard how I said I unto you. That's not what I'm saying about looking at. I think it's in John. It's in 15. It might be chapter 16. But we see that the comforter is the Ruach. But he told him, he said, I will not leave you comfortless. I will come unto you. And that's the thing. He sat back with Jonah. Jonah exceedingly mad, and he's grieved, and he's sorrowful, and he's ready to die. But in the midst of that, he gave him a vine that he could rest under his shadow or under his covering, that he might be comforted, and that the Ruach might comfort him. But turn around and sit back, and let's go back to Jonah chapter 4, and let's look what happens after that. He say, verse 7, Elohim prepared a worm when the morning rose the next day, and it smote the gourd that it withered. Do you not realize that he say that I am no worm and the worms cover me in Isaiah 14? Most High willing on Shabbat, man, I can go in a little bit more deeply because it's 10 minutes to 9. But that worm that smote that gourd that caused it to wither and pass away is the scribes and the Pharisees, the chief priests and the people, when they smote Mashiach and caused him to perish. He said, listen what he say now. And it came to pass when the sun did arise that Elohim prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat upon the head of Jonah that he fainted and wished it himself to die, and said, it is better for me to die than to live. Again, you see all this suffering and affliction that he going through, and he's sitting back looking at it. It was better for me to be dead than to continue to keep going. So don't sit back and think because men are prophets of Yah, these men walking with Yah, that these afflictions don't come upon their head to make them feel this way. Elohim said unto Jonah, do thou well to be angry for the gourd? And he said, I do well to be angry, even unto death. Then said Yahuwah, thou had pity on the gourd for which thou hast not labored. Neither made it grow, which came up in the night and perished in the night. You sit back and look at Mashiach came up in the night and he perished in the night. He say, should I not spare Nineveh, that great city, wherein are more 60 than 60,000 persons that cannot discern between their right hand and their left, and also much cattle? Because when you sit back and look at it, we didn't labor to make Mashiach, neither did we made him grow. But he was sitting back showing you that the same way he spared his son, and the same thing that gave you joy from your grief, should he not do this for the Gentiles? Should he not deliver them? Should he not save them, considering they know not what they do? See, I'll show you an example of that in Ephesians chapter 4 by verse 16. And then I'll read out 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and 1, chapter 11, and call it a night right there. Because I didn't really go all the way in the direction that I would have liked to, but I guess we went the way we needed to go. 4:17, Ephesians 4:17. This I say therefore, and testify in the master, that ye henceforth walk not as other Gentiles walk, in the vanity of their mind. See how he said they couldn't discern from their right hand and the left? They didn't know nothing. Having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of Elohim through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart. They didn't know. He said, should I not have mercy on them? To spare them? These people can't discern from their left hand to the right. They don't know what they're doing. 2 Corinthians chapter 11. I ain't get into it like I would have liked, but because I want to go through all these things and show an example of these afflictions, how it ended up to the esteem of the people who were going through. But look at verse 30, though. He said, if I must needs esteem, I will esteem of the things which concern my infirmities. The Elohim and Father of our Master Yahushua HaMashiach, which is blessed forevermore, know that I lie not. So hallelujah for Yahushua and for the word. That's what you sit back and look at is whatever we affliction or thing we suffering, it's going to be the esteem for Yahuwah. But we have to sit back